How's it going, everybody? Have you ever thought, if only I owned rental properties? That way I could sit back, other people would be paying me every month, I wouldn't have to work, and I'd still be making money. That would be the life. I thought this and thought, why haven't I done this already? Oh yeah, I don't have $400,000 just laying around to go and buy a house. So if you've had this same thought and same realization, I found something that we can afford to invest in that will still pay us passive income. And that's dividend paying stocks. So just a disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a CPA or anything like that. I've just been trying to learn ways to better manage my personal finances and find other ways to bring in income so I don't have to work so hard every day and I can eventually break free from the 9 to 5. So if you're interested in learning about things like this, stick around and feel free to subscribe to my channel and like this video, and I'll do more videos like this in the future talking about personal finance and how to get out of the 9 to 5. So I came up with this idea for this video when I was talking to my brother and sister during Christmas break, and they had a lot of questions about some of the investing I had been doing recently. So I wanted to put together this video mostly for them to explain to them the different processes I use and the tips and research tools I use to figure out what companies I want to invest in for receiving dividends. So in today's video, I want to explain to you why I like dividend stocks, what are some of their advantages, and some of the tools that I use to thoroughly research a company before I decide if I want to buy some of their stock and add it to my portfolio or not. Alright, so the first thing is, what is a dividend and what is a dividend paying stock? So I looked on Investopedia.com, which is a really good website for explaining anything with financial terms in it that you're unfamiliar with. So if there's anything you don't understand about stock market or any of these finance videos, go to Investopedia.com and you'll be able to find all of the answers for all the different terms that you're trying to figure out. So here's the long definition, and you can pause the video and read it. But basically, a dividend is a company will choose to take a portion of their earnings and pay it back to the shareholders that own the stock. So not every company does this, but there are a lot of companies that will choose to take some of their earnings and reward their shareholders for going along the journey with them or being a part of their company. I'd heard a lot about dividends and dividend paying stocks over the past couple of years, mostly on YouTube videos, but it always seemed like they paid a dividend of like 1% or something similar to that didn't really seem like it was worth investing my money into. So I decided to prove to myself that real estate was so much better than dividend stocks, and so I decided to do the math and run the numbers. So I found a house on Zillow in my area that was listed both for sale and for rent. And the sale price was listed at $411,000. The rent price was $2,100 a month. So I took the rent price of $2,100 a month and multiplied it by 12 to get a yearly return of $25,200. So you take $25,200 and divide it by $411,000, and then you multiply that answer by 100, and once you multiply that answer by 100, you get approximately 6.13%. So once I realized that the annual return for this rental property was only 6.13%, I thought to myself, I know of a lot of stocks that have a dividend paying yield of around 6%, but they're much more affordable. So if I was to own $411,000 worth of a stock that paid 6.13%, I would get that same $25,200 in annual returns. So once I realized that, it was pretty exciting. I had finally found a way to invest my money into something that I could afford and continually reinvest my dividends as they were paid, along with other money that I would continually add to the principal to help myself gradually build up an investment account. And that's something that I could start today rather than trying to save up $411,000 to buy a house so that in the future I could have money coming in. So I found a couple stocks to use as an example that have a similar percentage return as that house that I found that was a rental property. So one of the companies that I found was AT&T, which their stock symbol or ticker symbol is T, and they have a 7.2% annual dividend yield. So another company that I found is H&R Block that currently has a dividend yield of 6.03%. Then one more company that I found that has a similar yield is Chevron, which has a dividend yield of 6.05%. So I calculated the return for each of these three stocks if you were to have $411,000 invested in each one of these. So if you were to have $411,000 invested in AT&T with a return of 7.2%, you would receive $29,592 per year. That's a very similar return to having a rental property worth the same value. So one of the advantages of owning the stocks instead of owning real estate is that one share for each of these stocks is much cheaper than trying to save all your money up to go and buy a house. Another advantage that owning these stocks over owning real estate is that you don't have to deal with anything that breaks within the house. You don't have to replace a roof or replace a water heater or washing machine that goes broken. All you do is just own the stock and then that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Another cool thing about most stocks is that if you own them for more than a year, you're taxed on your dividends with the capital gains tax, which capital gains tax is much lower than the average ordinary income tax. So in a sense, investing in dividend stocks is almost like owning a tiny house or a bunch of little tiny houses that pay you for owning the little houses. Welcome to Monopoly. Just kidding. So like anyone new to the stock market, I got really excited once I had learned all of this and decided that I wanted to jump right in. So I looked for the companies paying the highest dividend yields, not knowing anything about dividends or companies that pay dividends. And I found a company that paid a high yield of around 10%. And this company was called Westwood Holdings. So this company, Westwood Holdings, with this ticker symbol of WHG, had a stock dividend yield of about 10% when I bought it. I'll open up my Robinhood account in a few minutes and I'll show you everything that happened with my stock when I owned a WHG and what all that happened with it. So I bought this stock in February of 2020, on February 3rd. So since this was my first dividend stock, I decided to be careful when I started and I bought just one share and it was around $27. And I bought this one just as an experiment to see how dividends worked. When do they pay? How much do they pay? How well does it work? Do I have to do anything special? So I bought one share and just held on to it just to see what happened. Well, then March of 2020 happened and the market crashed. So the market crashed and WHG fell also. So I waited all month in March and never got paid and was really confused as to what happens. So I looked into it further and found out that most dividends are paid quarterly. And so then I realized, okay, the next dividend is supposed to get here in April. April came around, even after the market crash, and I got my first dividend. I was super excited. It was 43 cents. Lunch is on me. Anyway, so I thought that was pretty cool. I got my 43 cents. I was a high roller now. That was my first passive income source where I didn't have to work for it and I was getting paid. So I waited until June when I was supposed to get my next one and it never came. I thought that was kind of strange. And then I looked into it and that's when I realized that dividends are paid out of companies that are receiving their earnings. Westwood Holdings was doing very poorly because of the market situation and they were not making earnings. So they stopped paying their dividends because they didn't have any extra earnings. All right, so here we are in my Robinhood account looking at WHG. So we can go down here to the very bottom and show the history. And it shows that I bought it at $27.96 in February of 2020. I got my dividend paid in April, but then never received any other dividends after that. And by October, I decided that since I was no longer receiving dividends, it was no longer worth keeping the company, and I sold it. So I thought, well, that sucks. I just realized that my new passive income stream is only effective in a strong market. So companies only pay dividends when the market's doing well, and then when the market's doing poorly, dividends are useless. That's where I was wrong. Turns out there's lots of companies that are still able to pay dividends even through hard times. I found an article online talking about a group of stocks known as the Dividend Aristocrats, and I thought this was really interesting. Okay, so let's talk about Dividend Aristocrats and Dividend Kings. So there's a little bit of a debate about the exact definition of a dividend aristocrat and a dividend king. Some people say that they have to continually increase no matter what for the past 25 years, and other people say they can either maintain the same or increase as long as they don't decrease. So the definition may vary depending on who you talk to. But basically, what a dividend aristocrat is and what a dividend king is a dividend aristocrat has maintained or increased their annual dividend yield for the past 25 years, and a dividend king has increased it or maintained it for the past 50 years. So a couple examples of companies that have been able to do this are Clorox, McDonald's, and Walmart, and other ones that are dividend kings are 3M, Johnson & Johnson, and Coca-Cola. And there's quite a few other companies that have also been able to do this. Now this is interesting to me because I know within the past 25 years that there's been at least 3 recessions that I know of. That means these companies have made it through the 2000 market crash, the 2008 market crash, and have also made it through the 2020 market crash. So these types of companies put a big emphasis on the importance of paying their dividends. And they keep maintaining them or increasing them because they know that a lot of their investors are only invested in their company, like me, to receive their dividend payments. So if they cut their dividends, they know they're going to lose a lot of their investors and the price of their stock is going to go down. So they put a very large emphasis on keeping their dividends secure. And these are the kind of companies that I want to look for to invest my money into, because I want to know that my money will keep paying through the good times and the bad. Okay, so this brings me to research tip number 1, and that's to check the dividend history on Nasdaq.com. So after finding out that some companies really prioritize dividends, I thought there has to be a way to find out if companies are still paying their dividends or if they've cut them. So that's when I found this dividend history information on Nasdaq.com. So I'm going to take you to the website and show you how I figured out how to look up the dividend history on this website. Okay, so now that we're at Nasdaq.com, let's go ahead and look up a company. So since we were talking about Westwood Holdings earlier, let's look up them and I'll show you how to find the dividend history for Westwood Holdings. So you want to type in just the symbol, not the name, and we'll type in WHG, and you can see that it popped up under here. So click on that and it'll take us to the WHG stock information. So this first page has a lot of useful information. It has up here in the right corner the current stock price. Unfortunately, it's the weekend, so the stock market is closed, so it shows you the last price that it closed at. But then if you scroll down, you're able to look at all of this other information. It shows you what sector it's in, and then if you look towards the bottom, it shows down here that the current dividend yield is not available. So if we scroll back up, we can see over here on the left hand side, right after all of the blue words end, the first one in black says dividend history. Click on that and we'll go to that page. So once we get to the dividend history page, you can see that it shows the last payment date on the right hand side was on April 1st of 2020, and that was when I received my 43 cents. But you can also see that was the last time they paid. They're no longer paying. As an investor, you would say, okay, I may have been interested in this company, but now that I see that they're not paying their dividends, that's a problem. So another important thing that I like about using Nasdaq.com is you can see what the numbers are so that you can actually verify that the dividend yield is correct. So here we are back at Robinhood, and I want to show you what Robinhood shows as the dividend yield for WHG. So it shows down here that the current yield is 9.71%. which we know is false because we just looked up on Nasdaq.com and found that they're not paying the dividend anymore. So Robinhood is not showing the correct information about the dividend yield. So let's go to a different company and see if that company is correct. So for example, let's just use Chevron. So the symbol is CVX, and this is one of the companies that I own. And it shows down here that the current dividend yield is 6.06%. So we'll keep that number in mind, and let's go back to Nasdaq.com and see what they show. Alright, so we're back here at the main page at Nasdaq.com, and let's go look up Chevron. So we'll go here and we'll type in CVX, and we'll wait for it to pop up underneath and click on that. And now it'll take us back to this main page and we can look at all the information once again. But we can also see down here at the very bottom it says the current yield is 5.8%. Well, that's different again from what Robinhood said. So let's go to the dividend history page again for Chevron. And this will show you what the actual annual dividend is. So it shows that it's $5.16. So we can actually use the information we have here to calculate the dividend on our own. So we can see that the last share price listed was $85.20, and the annual dividend is $5.16. Alright, so if we go to our calculator and take the information that we found from NASDAQ.com, we can take $5.16, which is our annual dividend yield for Chevron, and divided by the current share price shown on NASDAQ.com of $85.20, and then multiply that by 100. So our actual yield is about 6.06%, which is different from the 5.8% yield shown on NASDAQ.com, but Robinhood this time is correct with their current yield showing at 6.06%. So that's a really helpful tool that we can use, as it shows us the actual dollar amount of the annual dividend paid. But the most important thing, and the reason why I brought you here, is to look at this history statement showing you that Chevron, over the past 6 or 7 years, has continually been increasing their dividend payment over the years. So that's something that I like to see when I'm looking for a company that I want to invest in. I want to see that not only they held through the March market crash of 2020, but also they've been continually increasing the dividend yield over the years. So this is something that I was really excited to finally find, this history, and that I could use it for each company I wanted to look up. Alright, so research tip number 2. And that is diversifying your stocks with finviz.com. So Finviz is a website that's free where you can use it to search for different stocks, look up information about them, and also find which sector they fit into on a sector map, which is my favorite reason to use Finviz to find information about diversification, because their sector map is really helpful. So I'm going to take you to finviz.com and show you how I search in the sectors to make sure that I don't have all of my stocks in one sector. So the first thing you want to do is go to finviz.com. And then from here, there's all these different things that you can look at. But for now, we're just going to go to this little Maps tab right here in the gray bar. And since this is a free website, there's ads everywhere, but it's still helpful. So then over here on the left side for the map filter, click on full to make sure that we get all of the stocks shown. Let's say, for example, we want to figure out where H&R Block fits in this sector map. So we'll type in the symbol H&R Block and click on the tab over here. And it shows us in this little tiny yellow square that it fits into this sector. So let's scroll up and we can see that it's the consumer cyclical sector. So this is helpful to find any company that you want to see which of these sectors on the map it fits into. So say, for example, that you've got a lot of tech stocks and you want to try to branch out to other sectors and you're not sure where companies fit in the different sectors. Well, you can take all of the companies that you're researching, type them in on this sector map, and find where they fit so that you can help diversify your account even more. So the reason why I think this is important, in a recent interview with Graham Stephan, a YouTuber that talks about personal finance and investing, he was talking to Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. One of the things that Kevin O'Leary said that I really liked was he said that he tries to keep his portfolio diversified enough so that he has less than 5% of all of his account value in only one stock, and he tries to keep less than 20% of his entire account value in one sector. And the reason I think this is important is that, as we saw in the March market crash, the tech sector has done really well. But the retail sector and some of the other consumer sectors have done very poorly because those were the ones affected by the recession. So during a recession, some sectors do well and other sectors do poorly. And if you're diversified enough, then if one sector does poorly and the other sector does okay, then you're not very affected. But if you're heavily in one sector, that may be the sector that's affected by the recession, and your account value may go down and you may be hurt. So now let's go over here to the screener tab in this gray bar. Let's say that we're just looking to find more companies to research. Sometimes you just need a place to start. And so the first thing you want to do is click in here on the dividend yield tab, press positive just to find companies that have a dividend yield. Or if you want to find something higher, you can go 5%, 10%, things like that. Something you want to be careful of is that companies that pay a dividend of 5% or higher are considered a high dividend yield. And depending on the company, if the company is strong, having a high dividend yield is beneficial to you. But if the company is weak, the higher the dividend gets, the riskier it becomes. So you should keep that in mind when you're looking at dividends, looking for the higher yields. You need to be very careful with how the company is. Like me, when I had a WHG, I took it only because it had a 10% dividend yield, and that was one of the first companies to fail during the market crash. So if you want a company that is strong, you need to make sure that you do research and not only go based on the yield. But so let's say that we're looking for something that just has a dividend yield, but we need something to branch out. Let's say that we're looking for something within the healthcare sector. So we can see all of these things are in alphabetical order. We can go down here to the financial tab and click on the dividend tab, and that will start organizing them by dividend. So then you could go the opposite way and show the dividend from the highest to the lowest and look through all these different companies. And you may be unfamiliar with them if you only see the symbol. But this one, for example, is Pfizer. That's one that we're all familiar with right now. And you can see that Pfizer pays a dividend of 4.35%. So that might be a way to help you find additional companies to start researching if you're just trying to get an idea of who to start looking for. So this is another tool that is helpful to help me get a bunch of stocks that I'm looking at that I can do further research for before I decide to buy into any of them. Okay, so research tip number 3 is further investigation. You can think of this one of two ways. You can either be like a detective or acting like a job interviewer. Either way, or both approaches, might be beneficial. You want to do as much research on these companies as you can to make sure that they are a good fit for your portfolio. You want to make sure that they continually contribute to your portfolio by adding dividends every time they're supposed to pay, and that they're not going to cut their dividends, suspend their dividends, or there's not going to be any bad news that's going to hurt the company in any way that's long term. As a dividend investor, you're more of a long-term investor because you're planning on holding the stock for years and years to continually receive the dividends. So you want to look into all these different details and make sure that the company is strong and that their dividend is secure. You can look at analyst ratings, look at the earnings, things like that, but make sure you look in a lot of places because some people might say the stock is bad and really the stock is doing okay or doing well. And so you want to get a lot of different opinions, a lot of different information so that you can form your own opinion on whether or not you think the stock is going to continue to do well or if you think it's going to do poorly. Because at the end of the day, it's your money and you want to make sure that you're comfortable where you're putting your money and where you're investing your money. So make sure that you do your own research and you feel comfortable with where you're investing your money because you want your money to benefit you. All right, so just to conclude, I just want to reiterate the fact that I am not a financial advisor and I'm not a CPA or an accountant or anything, and you should do all of your own research or you should turn to a financial professional for any further questions. But hopefully this video helped answer some of the questions you may have had about dividend stocks. If you still have more questions or have a comment or anything that you'd like to add, leave it in the comment below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, I'll leave a link in the description for some other really good videos about dividend stocks. And if you haven't gotten started in investing yet and you'd like to get started, I'll leave a link for the brokerages that I use. If you use those links, you can get free stocks for Webull and for Robinhood. If you have anything to add, leave it in the comments below. Leave a like if you thought this video was good. Let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to hear or anything else you'd like to learn about. And feel free to subscribe if you'd like to learn more about investing or personal finance videos. Thanks for watching.